Hi, this is Eric Elder. Welcome to this episode. This is our episode where we take a 30-day writing challenge, and we're getting ready in the next month to work on our book project, whatever it is. If you're trying to write a first draft, or you're trying to get through the second half, or you're trying to put together a collection of poetry, or whatever it is that your writing project is, we're challenging people to take 30 days and really focus on that, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, or more a day. But to take some time each day and carve that out and say, I'm going to work on this project, and by the end of November, you'll have made a major push forward. And I've written a number of books in the last few years that way, where I take 30 days in November and I just write for 30 days straight, and just an hour a day for me. And I produced 5 different books that way, because I get a first draft out, and then I can take another 6 months or whatever time I need to edit it and have other people review it. So my goal in my own life is to continue writing, and write not just a book, but to write books. And this is one way that you can do that. Also, whether you're just a neophyte and you're just starting with writing, this is a great way to kickstart your writing efforts. So I just want to encourage you to take 30 days. So tonight we have a discussion among the people who have gathered here, and we're all just going to share where we are with our books and what we want to do next. And we're going to close with a 30-day challenge and talk about what our goals are for each of our projects. So I hope you enjoy tonight's episode. It's very free form, and you're going to hear a lot of people talk about their own projects, but I think you'll find encouragement all along the way for your projects too.
How's everybody doing?
Hey, Kent, how are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Good, thanks. I just walked in the door, though, and I'm going to need about 5 or 10 minutes to get things settled. Are you okay taking our hello? And Neville is joining us from Edmonton, Canada, Alberta, Canada. And
cool.
Ashley's here, too. So I'm just going to step out just for a few minutes here while I get set up. But Kent has got you covered.
Neville, how are you, sir?
I'm great, thanks. It's my first time in your club, and I'm expecting great things.
Well, we are too. So, of course, there's great people here. So, and we are honored to have you in our midst, of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what we normally do is we take some time, and there will be people joining here in the next probably 10 minutes or so, other people popping on. But typically we have kind of a teaching session sort of a thing with a lot of discussion. Tonight's going to be a little different because we're just talking about goals that we have, challenges that we have as writers. And I'm approaching this kind of like a mastermind, which is a term used when people meet together and they just share ideas and try to offer suggestions and ideas and just kind of help each other with obstacles or any problems that they're having. So that's kind of the format for tonight's meeting. Why don't we take a few minutes, and why don't we each just share a little bit about what we're doing as far as our writing, goals that we have, and things that we're working on right now. In my day job, I'm a college prof, and I've been doing that for 16 years. I teach at a school called St. Louis Christian College in Florissant, Missouri, which is in the North County region of St. Louis. I've done that for a long time. I started out teaching music and worship, and then a few years ago, I transitioned into teaching courses related to film and storytelling, podcasting, media, blogging, that kind of stuff. And I've been writing for the last several years. I started off as a blogger, but then I got into podcasting a few years ago, and I host a podcast that's called Smart Business Writing. But I'm actually changing that podcast in a couple of weeks to a show called The Daily Writer. And that show will be all about developing habits and the mindset for success as a writer. So I do that, and then my side business is ghostwriting. So I ghostwrite for business and for business clients, but also those who want to do personal growth books, Christian books. Basically, I ghostwrite anything except for fiction. I don't really do that. But that's going well. I just finished my first client book a couple weeks ago, and I'm in the middle of writing my second client book. So I definitely keep busy with that. So that's pretty much what I do, writing-wise. Neville, you're welcome to share, or Ashley, if you want to share, that's great as well.
Okay, I'm a psychotherapist and I've been in the business a long time. And I've written lots of things which are called reports,
Uh-huh.
client reports. I've done a number of short pieces, short stories, and published some a few years ago. And I spent the past 9 years doing a lot of speaking. And I thought, oh, all this speaking and writing for speaking, I'm going to try my hand at a book. But I started a couple of books and put them aside. And now I've just decided to become serious. And I've started writing something called Adventures of an Apostle. And that's happening because from about age 14, 15, I really got excited about Acts of the Apostles in such a way. It's crazy the way I am. And I've started on that, and I'm halfway through. What I've done is I spent a lot of time researching Saul, and I asking the question, what did Jesus see in Saul? I mean, like, why Saul? So I've got 2 chapters on Saul already before I decided I'm not getting into the first missionary journey, second, third, until I really squeeze everything I can out of Saul. What I'm doing is a creative nonfiction, as it were. And creative being, I'm making it adventurous and a bit funny here and there. A lot of dialogue and a lot of fast movement and some things that I expected to happen on the walk to Damascus. Also, as I get into the first mission journey, when I'm going across Cyprus, no, they didn't just go from Salamis to Pavos. Cyprus is such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
They stopped, they hiked, they did a few little things. They roasted corn, well, not corn, some other things. And so the thing is different than theological and academic thesis on Paul. And I hope to get some insights from you. I searched the web to find Christian writing group, and I saw a number of them, and I hooked onto this one and thought, I'll start with this one. I need a lot of guidance because I'm really straying away from the one statement in a verse or a chapter. I'm outside of that. These people were living a life traveling with the gospel. So
what is your goal for your book? Is this something you want to publish next year with a traditional publisher, or are you thinking self-publishing? Do you have any specific idea how you want that to go?
My introduction to anything about publishing happened only last night when I looked at your meeting of last month.
Okay.
It was really exciting. I thought, I know nothing about publishers. And so after looking at that one last night, I can't answer your question right now, but I'm excited talking about publishing. I hadn't even thought of publishing. I just thought of writing. And the meeting that you had last month, said to me, Neville, think about publishing. Is that my answer? Yes, for now.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you're thinking about that, because you can absolutely do it. It is completely within your power to do it. And my first impression is that if you've been doing psychotherapy for a long time and you understand the intricacies of that field, then you can pretty much do anything, because that is a complex field and a complex topic. At least to me, it is. So obviously you're very accomplished. You're a highly intelligent person. So, you can definitely figure this out. No problem.
With help.
Yeah. And we all need help for sure. But it's something you can definitely do. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Ashley, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I just have a dinner and kiddos and loudness. So, But yeah, I'll step aside here for a second. I'm listening, just multitasking.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's all
So,
good.
you already know my projects, Kent, but yeah, I'm a musician by trade. But recently I've tried to get more into the writing side of it. So I have a YouTube channel where I post music videos, and then also short stories about musicians. So I'm kind of trying to bring awareness to like the classical music world, especially, and kind of, I don't know, help people learn more about that. And I'm working on a clean romance fiction novel that I'm hoping to release in 2021. And my website is rescottcreative.com. So yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if you want me to elaborate more or not.
Sure. Really anything that you want to say about it is great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've always been fascinated by the concept of the fusion of different art forms. So kind of seeing how visual arts and musical and literary kind of all come together. And that's always been a passion even back in my school days. And so I'm finally trying to find a way to kind of make that happen. And so when I write like my short stories, I include videos, links to videos that would show, like if you're talking about, I don't know, a famous Bach piece in the story, I can include a link to that piece. And if it's a song that I actually can play, I'll try to record some of them myself. If it's not, I'll include a link to something else. In the short stories, I try to include as many different instruments as possible. I'm trying to represent a lot of different ones, especially for people to be like, oh, back when I was in band or I was in whatever, and think about your instrument. And so that hopefully most people could find their instrument represented. In my novel, I do a little bit of a deeper dive. And it's a little bit, so then I focus a little bit more on the strings since my instrument is violin. So, yeah, I'm a Christian, and I told Kent I'm trying to convince my dad to write maybe a series of devotions, because he was always a strong leader in our family, and he would do weekly Sunday night Bible studies and stuff. So, I'm trying to cheer him on to get him to write maybe a devotional book or something.
Cool. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. We appreciate that.
I'm like, I need Dad to join this group.
And I see Mary Felkins
is also
getting on here. So we're excited to have you. And then Connie is also.
Mary, I just finished your book 2 days ago and it was amazing. I almost cried.
I don't think she heard
Sorry,
you.
I had to throw that in. Oh, Mama cried.
Connie, welcome.
Hi.
Good to have you this evening. Thanks for joining us. And Mary, welcome. Good to have you tonight.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.
And I think you probably weren't connected to audio yet, but Ashley just had a comment for you. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Mary, I just finished your book. Sorry, I'm not the fastest, but it was amazing. I almost cried. Your Call to Love. I thought you had written like a ton of books, and I was like, this was your debut novel? I would never have guessed. It was fabulous.
Thank you. That really blesses me.
Absolutely loved it.
How you doing?
Yes.
Thankful for your sharing that and for reading all the way to the end.
Yes. Well, Kent knows I'm an audio girl, so I listened to it.
Okay.
I'm an audiobook person, but I listened all the way to the end.
Good.
So
Good.
Yeah, I loved how you depicted the servicemen and women of our community. I thought that was a really cool testimony, and kind of gives a name, and a picture of those people that service. Yeah. Sorry, my son's very excited.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah, and I almost was fearful with all the chaos here of everything going on. I was almost afraid to even promote, by the way, my hero is a cop. Is that okay? And so I just thought,
I was curious if you'd written it before or after all of that, but
before.
I thought it was an amazing tribute to the servicemen. And I lived by a chief of police for several years, and I mean, I just, it was scary seeing the kind of dangers they faced and stuff. So.
Right. Well, when you spend time with them, and again, it started with research, and God just had so much more in that, and that you should interact with these people when you're writing about a professional.
Right.
I don't know anything about law enforcement. They have guns.
Oh, really? Oh, you did an amazing job.
but yeah, I thought, and so now they're very dear friends, and people I pray for and all that. So yeah, but
yeah.
I
They probably
appreciate
need encouragement during this time too.
Yeah, they
So
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, it
beautiful.
was fun to leave little notes on their squad cars, like a hit and run kind of thing, and just because I
Yeah.
would give my car number and go, oh, that's Anthony, that's
Yeah.
so and so. So
Yeah. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Mary, since we've already kind of got you center stage here, what we're doing is we're just sharing a bit about the kind of writing that we do and some of the things that we're working on right now. So what we're doing tonight, and in fact, let me take a second to kind of recap for those of you who weren't on a little bit ago. Tonight's going to be a little different. We don't have a specific topic that we're covering. This is more like a mastermind session where we're just all sharing what we're working on and some obstacles that we're facing right now in our writing, what our goals are for maybe the next few weeks or even in the next year, if you want to share that. So we're just kind of feeding off one another and throwing some ideas out there and trying to inspire and encourage each other. So there's no set kind of agenda for tonight. This is just kind of a fireside chat, I guess. We're all just kind of gathered around the campfire. And of course, there's no fire or marshmallows. So it's not really like a campfire, I guess.
Can you create that as a backdrop behind you instead of those?
I should. That would be really fun. So, Mary, if you want to take a couple of minutes to tell us kind of what you're working on and, a little bit about you for anybody who doesn't know you, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I am an inspirational romance author, which I didn't realize until I had written this story and wrote it one way where it didn't turn out so well for the hero. And I started realizing that, romance really means that they end up together at the end. I thought, I really do. My heart's desire is for happily ever afters, especially this year. It's been a really crazy year, but I would like to offer material where you might kind of go on a little bit of a roller coaster ride. And yet in the end, just like watching a rerun of a football team where your team wins, everything's going to be okay in the end. And so I just have a real passion for, just like scripture, just hang on, keep reading through to Revelation. It'll be fine. There's happily ever after. So, but then I also do some nonfiction writing, which, with my website, I started before I ever had a book published. I thought, well, I want to put content out there. So I was writing, what I didn't realize is I was writing devotions, and actually just recently self-published this little gem with the help of Eric Elder, just a compilation of some of those writings from my blog posts. And but my primary heartbeat is fictional, inspirational romance, inspirational code for Christian, which I've already shared before in the group. That's a little bit my way of not scaring off people who don't appreciate Christian material, or they have preset conceived ideas of what that means. And so I want to try to lure them into a fun story and tuck the gospel in there in more subtle ways. So inspirational is kind of the word for Christian or clean. So,
Mary, I was curious. I was I went right before you reading romance too, and I was curious, how do you contemporary? How do you kind of figure out that line of, like I want to be able to bring in, mine's music fiction a lot, like my hero and heroine are musicians, so I want to be able to appeal to that demographic, but I'm also a Christian, and how do you have that kind of faith heartbeat while still not totally offending, like you're more your more liberal side of those professions? I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah. And sometimes there are subtle ways to do that. I like to do that in dialogue. I like to do that in, their private thoughts, like, Lord, help me survive this shift, for example.
Right. That was really powerful.
So I will tell you, there was one book I read, I can't even tell you the title, from years ago, where there was this author intrusion. You could tell that the author had, it was not the voice of the grandmother anymore. It was the author speaking through the grandmother in a rocking chair, sharing the gospel. It just felt very contrived. And I thought, this doesn't even sound like the character. And it was very lengthy. And I think you have to stay away from the cliches. Some of these, sadly, we know what a devotional is. We know what a quiet time is, but the unbelieving world does not, or if they do, they they don't like it. And I will tell you too, in the very first scene, I used very, very organically the phrase biblical femininity. Well, that's a big no-no to some readers. I lost one potential reader. I have to be sensitive to the fact that, and you really have to pray about that. I mean, that wasn't my agenda to say that really isn't what the story's about, but it taught me, okay, there are readers who claim to be, non-binary, raised in a purity culture. I was like, what is all this? So I had to learn that, and it really is a decision between you and the Lord. Where do you ask me to lay this down? Where am I being too heavy? I will not compromise. Hey, these characters, they believe a lie at the beginning, and my goal is to transform that into the truth. Well, what is the truth? It's not a fluffy sentiment. It's biblically based truth,
Right, which you did. You did that, yeah.
So I just think you have to be careful. Or sometimes I think people will close the book the minute you have the pastor in the pulpit and the hero is there on Sunday morning. You're like, here we go,
Right.
And sometimes that's done well. So you might even err on the side of too much and then rein it back in, so it's hard to know. And then that's just where you can get some editor feedback and you can say, hey, I'm concerned about that. And hopefully, there are some editors that could say you need to ramp this up. It's too soft. And
right. That's where it's tricky to find that.
Like balance. I had a scene that I changed where it was after the awards night and he is angry about how that played out. And there's a guy that comes down the hallway in the hotel with a tray of, beverages like alcohol. And he starts to reach for it and take a swig and puts it back. Well, alcohol's not even an issue. If he were like a recovering, alcoholic, then that might play in. But she just said, we don't need to have that at all. So I just changed it where he reaches for it. And then he realizes, he was kind of intoxicated by his own anger. That was enough. So I had to soften it a little bit. And it's just what came to me at the time. That has nothing to do with preaching the gospel, but just things like that. But
it is trying to figure out with your audience, if you want to still be able to have some non-Christians reading it, but also Christians, and they don't always view things through the same lens, but when you hope that these characters would appeal, to both,
Well, and also being unafraid to put them in situations that we don't want that for our children, but guess what? Our characters, as you know, in the opening scene, she's in a situation that we don't want to.
Right.
As a parent, but that really appealed to some people.
Right.
Say, oh, you mean these aren't squeaky clean characters? Maybe I'll turn the page. Oh,
yeah.
Or he cussed, but I don't use any cuss words. You don't need to know that. You don't need your head filled with that, but you need to know that he
is a real.
And maybe he's sinned or something, and God's grace and forgiveness. So there's a lot of little tricks, but it's good to be aware of it and just kind of ask yourself, am I going on and on and on here?
Right.
How am I packaging that? But you want to try to see if you can have that casually happen in characters. The mother that says she's about ready to go to church, and the hero is like, oh, you going to church? And she says, no, worship. There's a difference.
Yes, I remember that.
Like on a big platform saying, it was just real quick, and it should make
a subtle moment.
What does she mean? Anyway.
Yeah. You did a wonderful job with it. Yeah.
Lots of editing.
Yes. I'm in the editing phase now, so that's why I'm like, okay, which parts do I need to tweak one way or the other?
Just ask God, are you happy? I don't want to adulterate this and water it down. What would honor you? How do you want this to play out? So
I like that
question.
He knows the people that need to hear whatever you're saying, and so what would be the best way to package it for them.
Exactly.
Well, Mary, thanks for sharing. Man, it's exciting that your book is out there, and I think you just finished the second one too, right?
Get the fangirl here. fangirl moment.
You just finished a second one too, correct?
This is a devotion. It's kind of a placeholder. I don't mean to make that insignificant. So it was something I kind of promised some of my followers where I said I would, and I felt obligated. That was kind of my goal for this year. And then I wrote Ashley, the character Wesley Cassidy, the younger brother. I wrote in over 2 weeks in July a draft.
Yeah, I liked him.
I wrote his story, and I was really shocked by things I learned about him. But the publishing didn't have it. It wasn't strong enough for them. And the time that I sent it, if I'd sent it back in April, they probably could have worked with it a little bit more. So I am hoping to have that out in the world next year, either with a publisher. I could do it on my own. I don't know what I'll do with that. But then there's a 3-part series too that I've been working on since 2017. And presently, when you ask the question, what are you working on? It's really book number 3 of this 3-part series that takes place in New Orleans about an abandoned plantation house that restores its owner. That's book 1. So, but life is upside down now because we have our house under contract. And so my brain is very fragmented right now. But I had been making a lot of forward progress with that one, and those characters a little bit. They get silent if I don't work on them. They get silent, and if I'm fully focused on them, they start talking more. So it sounds a little bit crazy, but if you write, you understand how that is. So
awesome. Well, Connie, do you want to take a moment to share about what you're working on and any goals that you have for your writing?
Okay, I'm more of a listener to all of you because I have all these poems that I've already written, just kind of sitting there. I just have to ever come to the point of putting them together in some orderly manner to create a book, because that's pretty much what I wanted to do, was just publish my poems. And some of them are written about photographs, and some of them are just written about, different events or people or things God has shown me or taught me. And I just have notebooks, many notebooks with different poems, written. So, and I've had 2 of them published just as, like when they had those poetry contests. I don't know if you guys have ever, if you're not interested in poetry, you may not have seen them, but everybody from across the country sends in poetry, and then they select, poems to put in a book. I could read one if you don't mind. I could do that. Because let me find the book up here.
Are you writing them actually on with ink on paper, or are you writing on the computer? Like, where are they stored?
Well, some of them are on paper, and some of them are in a computer. Now, wait, where's my books at? Now, this is going to make me wonder what happened to them. But anyway, some of them are in notebooks. Some of them are in a computer. Some of them are in, just like an iPad, where I used to put photographs and put the poems with them. But they're kind of all over the place, actually.
So you're wanting to publish them? I mean, you'd like to publish them?
I'd like to publish them. I think it originally started out that I wasn't sure how to go about doing it, simply because some of them are written about photographs, and that makes it, different. But I think I'm just kind of all over the place because as a nurse, I am so focused more on medicine and a lot of that stuff, and that this has been more of a hobby. And I don't know why, but getting motivated to actually publish them has just seemed like such a far off. Can I read one?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. There are places and there are times. There are words and there are rhymes. There are seasons all around. There are reasons that abound. There are ups and there are downs. There is laughter. There are clowns. There are people all around, but only God can surround sound. There are books and there are teachers. There are Bibles and there are preachers. There are churches all around. Where in Christ love is found. People fail and people die. People whine and people cry. Life on earth is but a sigh. Will you leave and wonder why? There are times and there are reasons. There is hope and there are seasons. Can we explain away the day? Without Christ, we lose our way. There are places, there are rhymes. There are mountains, there are climbs. The righteous seek and prevail. In prayer, God's glory drove the nail.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, very beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Here's one about, in the Bible it says, he who is without sin cast the first stone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of us, many people, they don't consider words to be stones,
Mm.
Yeah. But words really are stones.
Mm-hmm.
And this poem is about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So stones are words, some unheard, swirling round your mind, resting taut, propelled when sought, hurled in haste, unkind. Skipping stones thrown alone, sink into the deep. Slicing strikes, express dislikes, bruised without a peep. Stones are felt, mental welts, lashing by and by. Vindictive sighs, blind replies, Pharisee, mind's eye. Face the crowd, be still, out loud. Lines drawn with a hand. Paused reply. Stones heaved high, dissolving into sand.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I feel like it's cool that it seems like poetry is kind of making a comeback now, or maybe it's just me. I feel like I think that's great because I think it's a beautiful medium.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been listening, and it's good.
Eric.
I found this quote in this book of quotes about poetry. I'll read it and see what you think of it. It says, publishing a volume of poetry is like dropping a rose petal down the Grand Canyon and waiting for the echo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I think it takes people a while to think about the poetry, and then the reactions might come way later, but it's because the words are so thoughtful.
I think that's true, and that's probably why I sit back sometimes. I think part of my problem is, I write all these poems, and people tell me, I've had people tell me for years, you should publish those. You should publish those.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say, yeah, I will. I should. Or so, and then I just go on because I feel like it's like an intimate communication between me and God, and it's hard to I can share it
there. Yeah
I can read it to somebody and share it because it's like this emotion, this feeling that of relationship with God, but yet it's hard to think about letting go of it and putting it in a book and letting go of it.
Connie, thanks for sharing, man. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Very powerful.
That is awesome. Poetry is I think poetry is really difficult to do well and to do with the heart.
I was going to say, my grandma's a poet, and so she's published her books of poetry, and she taught me how to write poetry when I was little. So every once in a while I do try, but sometimes I have to be in the right muse or something. I don't know. So yes, which
I would love to hear from I would love to hear from Eric about your goals, since you're kind of the leader of this deal here. Would you be cool sharing with some of the things that you're working on and like what some of your upcoming goals are for your writing?
Sure. Well, one of the reasons I thought tonight to do this 30-day challenge was because in November I usually do a major writing project. I try to write something. And I got my big start by writing this book, St. Nicholas the Believer.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, it is very good.
It's good.
It's the real
Everybody go buy a
St.
copy.
Nicholas, and just how he really lived and how he really loved Jesus with all his heart. But it had been years and years of just thinking about it, and then I had been reading about this NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, and it's just a challenge that says take 30 days and write a 50,000 word novel. And the idea is not to stop and edit everything and make it all clean and neat. It's just to write, just to get the thoughts out of your brain and onto the computer, onto the paper. And because people say they have a book they want to write or they've been thinking about it, but they just never quite get around to it. So this is an annual challenge that this organization does. And so now lots of people do it. And so I decided to do it one year and just said, all right, November 1st, I'm going to try to write this novel. And so leading up to November 1st, I sort of outlined it. My wife and I had been researching stories and finding out more about his life and reading other books. And so I just picked the top 30 stories that I thought would be nice to tell, about his parents died when he was young, and he saved these 3 girls from being sold and by redeeming them with these 3 bags of gold that he threw through their window. And I just wrote down all the stories, and then I tried to come up with an order of how it might make a nice story. How could we tie these all together in a compelling story? And we introduced a few other characters that he had someone to talk to, because we have research about Nicholas, but we don't really have those conversations. So I introduced a few characters that would help bring out some of the things we learned about him without him having to just say it all. So it could come out more naturally in dialogue and conversation. So I sort of had this all outlined just in a rough form. Here's the 30 little stories, 30 little scenes I want. And I just wrote them all on one piece of paper. Just the title of the bag of coins, his parents die, just all the different stories, and had them in order. And then I just woke up every day, and the first thing I did after my quiet time and reading my Bible and praying, I would just take out my computer, and I just wrote for about an hour. And I just tried to think of, so how would I tell this story? I've read a lot about these different things, but how would I tell the story in my own words and make it interesting and thoughtful and compelling? And so it really took about an hour a day. I was working another job, so I edit, so I didn't, it wasn't like I had all day to write. And then by the end of 30 days, it actually turned into like 45 stories, because I would take 2 days for some stories because they were longer, 3 days for a story. And so it took me about 45 days to finish. So I was in the middle of December before I finished. But when I was done, I had the first draft of this whole thing done just by spending an hour a day writing out, just a short, this is what I'd like to happen in this scene. And this is, the characters and who I tried to tell the story. And then I took another 6 months to edit it and to fix it. But it was really that 30-day push that got me a first draft and made me feel so good. Like, wow, I can actually see this being a story that would be really helpful for people. And I've learned a lot that it would help others too. So I've done this for several books now. And this last fall, I did this one on my stories of faith. And it's just about 30 stories. I try to pick, 20 or 30 or 45 little snippets from my life where how God has impacted my life. And so I just wrote them down for 30 days in November. And again, it was probably 40 days by the time. I never finished by November 30th, and I never get 50,000 words. But I have produced a lot of books by the end of it, because that just gives me a challenge to say, okay, I'm just going to sit down and write as much as I can. And then I can go back and edit and clean up and rearrange and ask people what they think. And Kate's been one of my great sounding boards over the years. We've been in a Monday morning mastermind group where we just 3 of us, we just talk about our goals and our plans for the week for an hour on Zoom every Monday morning for several years. And so I'll send him chapters, and the other guy that's in it, I'll send him chapters. Usually after I clean them up a bit. So, but I had written my story, my testimony book was another one that I did one of these Novembers. And I just wrote several stories. I'd written down several stories about how I came to faith, how I came to meet my wife and the love of my life, and just the changes that made in my life and in my, my inner thought life, and really cleaned up my life a lot. So it's called 50 Shades of Grace. And you were talking, Mary, about how much do you tell? How much heat do you generate in the love scenes? And how much do you have to pull back for your readers? So this was a book that was very, it made me very nervous, because I was telling a lot of intimate stories about how God had changed my life and my thought life and my desires, and really brought me into a relationship with my wife that was just a terrific love story for 23 years until she passed away. And as Connie said, that's been 8 years ago now. but I would send those every time to Kent and another guy at the time. And just as I finished writing one, I would send it to them and say, do you think this is anything that I should even be putting out there? And their feedback was really helpful, because they said, this is actually really helpful and really insightful, just because people don't talk about some of these things much. And I don't know what your reactions were, Kent, honestly, but you were very gracious to me. In fact, Kent suggested the title for this. I think
I was going to say that title is just brilliant. That was brilliant.
Well, it's not rated G. I can say that.
It's not.
Okay, well,
it's
okay, but still, like, I think, you could help people that need to change some thoughts.
And I like it, and I think it's really good. And I expanded to have more readers read it and tell me what they thought about if it was too much or too little sharing. And I pulled some things back and I kept some things in, because it was important to tell the transformation that Jesus did in my life.
And it really does that well.
Yeah. So I think
absolutely.
But having some people to read it later. But that whole 30 days in November, I didn't have anyone read it. I just wrote, and I said, I'm just going to write it. And I used fake names. All the stories are true, but I didn't even want it on my computer if I wasn't ever going to publish it. I didn't want anyone to find it and say, oh, wow, Eric, because I was really nervous. Like you, Connie, it's very hard to give up your thoughts and your words, and what are people going to think, and are they going to be moved the same way you were moved? It's hard to be a writer, I think, and if you really share from your heart. But it's really important to share from your heart, and that's a project Kent and I are thinking about doing. We're talking about it right now. So you asked what I'm working on, but I'm thinking of turning these 12 topics that we're doing in the 12 writing classes into a book on writing. And Kent thought of a brilliant title for it. I don't know if you want to share it, Kent, but you can. But
sure, go ahead.
So no one else
big secret or anything.
He thought of the title "Right to the Heart."
Right. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Thumbs up.
It sounds like a Hallmark movie, doesn't it?
So if we don't ever get around,
but that's good. I like all the puns. These are great.
Good.
But the idea is to really focus on the reader and the reader of your books. As you're writing, write to people's hearts. How what can you do to really move their hearts? And Kent and I both do this in our writing. We really try to think of the reader, and we try to really tell stories that will move them and help. Sometimes even bypassing their intellect, even though we're very intellectual, but sometimes you have to really head to the heart. So I loved the title, and so we're thinking of that. So I don't know if November we're gonna be able to collaborate on that and pull that together. We both have several other projects. My other project, the reason I mentioned St. Nicholas, was that a dance company turned this into a ballet, a full-length ballet, and so we filmed it last December.
Was it November? It was November.
It was November. Yeah, they did it early last year.
So where can we see the ballet? Do you have it on like YouTube or something?
So it'll be on YouTube the day after Thanksgiving, if I finish editing it all in November. So that's my project.
Is it kid friendly? Like, my daughter's obsessed with ballet.
Totally kid friendly.
Oh yeah.
This one is G. My daughter was giving me a ballet like right before dinner tonight, and so she's always like, "Mom, I need another ballet to watch." So now we know.
Oh,
good. You'll love it. You'll love it. I got to see.
Yeah, she'll really like it.
Yeah, I got to see.
Oh, nice.
Kent came down to South Carolina to see it, and Mary and her husband came down from North Carolina. We did it. It was live in South Carolina, so so we filmed it down there. But the day after Thanksgiving, we're gonna try to have a launch weekend. I've edited half the movie. We took it from so many camera angles and directions, so I'm trying to watch all of it and edit it, and so I've gotten half of it done, and that's my project. My daughter's getting married this weekend, and after the wedding, I'm going to start diving into editing the ballet some more. So that's probably my main November goal, because it takes me about 3 or 4 days per scene, and I've got like 15 scenes to go. So well, maybe. So it's gonna be a time crunch.
And a wedding in there too. So
the wedding, yeah, I'm so excited. My first daughter, she's 29, and the first of 6 kids to get married. So I'm really thrilled for her. And
I'm excited. Thank you for sharing the link on that too on Facebook for watching it
Yeah,
live.
you can watch the wedding if you want on
Yeah, I'm glad.
on
Well, Eric, I hear, speaking of my husband, I hear him in the room right up
Yes.
above me. I don't know
Okay.
if you can hear it, but
I
he is disassembling furniture because our house needs to be packed up.
Yes.
And I can feel the tension.
All right.
Where I'm supposed to be helping him.
Yes.
So
You've got like a deadline coming up in a week or two, don't you?
yeah, just a lot. So I'm going to be away October the 26th through November. No, 26th to November 6th on a private writing retreat. And the goal is to work on book 3 during that time. But also, that's the date of our closing is November 6th. So I have to put everything in order between now and October 26th. So
wow. So you've got a goal to book 3. You're going to have a draft done. Is that the goal?
I'm about halfway through, and I'm in a stuck place, and just life is in a lot of upheaval right now too. So, had to put our dog down on Monday. So
Oh,
I saw that, and I was really sorry to hear that.
if you follow Instagram or Facebook, you'll see it's kind of dominated. I didn't realize how very much, like even today, I'm in my environment and there's nothing living. Like it's amazing how much you assume things are gonna, or how much you get used to a certain thing. And so it's really impacted me how hard it's been. So it's more than just the loss of a family pet. I'm trying to explore and pray about why is this so hard? I think so. Part of that is just, and then I've got the new buyers are coming in with their contractors, and they're all excited. And it's a huge answer to prayer, but it's just a mix of, it's hard to be creative. And so, anyway, yeah, appreciate prayer for that. So
yeah, we will.
I need to hop off and
all right. Tell Bruce hello to yeah. All right.
So anyway,
thanks for letting me go all fangirl on you.
Sure. Well, tell Amazon how you feel if you liked it.
Yes, I think I did, but if I didn't, I'll go check and make sure I did, because I know for authors that's like critical. Yes, I think I at least did it on Audible, but I need to see if I can do it on both Audible and Amazon.
I appreciate.
Can you do it on both? Do you know?
I don't know, but
so I will make sure I did it on the Amazon too. So because I did it on at least one of them, but I'll check which one and I'll put it on the other.
Because all the formats are up there on Amazon, so they should accept it, but I don't know.
I'll just make sure it went to the other one too, because I know that's helpful. Yeah.
Thank you for trying. So appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Y'all have a great evening. So appreciate it.
Thanks.
See you next time. Bye.
So my desire tonight too was just to encourage others to take their next step and maybe make a November your 30-day challenge for whatever you need to do. Kind of, maybe it's find all your poems, gather them, collect them, and decide what you want, and every day for 30 days, just do something on it. If it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and find photographs if you decide you want to do photographs, or make a decision early on that you don't want to do photographs, and that'll make your choices easier or something. Or but if you make 30 days, there's nothing really magical about November or about 30 days, but I think just knowing that other people are doing it too, and there are writing groups, and I think in November I'd love to have at our meeting have people read some of their writings that they've been working on during the month. So if there's something you're working on, or give us an update in the middle of November. I'd love to hear, just a few poems, or a chapter or two, or something from what you're working on, just as incentive and accountability to each other to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to do my next step. So I don't know what your next step might be, whether it's writing the first draft of a book, or whether you need to just polish it up and edit it, or maybe you've got half of something done and you just want to finish it. You need some artificial deadline and some friendly nudge. That's my 30-day challenge. So I don't know if you have some time even right now, just maybe to think through, maybe even write something down, what your goal might be, or talk through. We're glad to listen, and Kent and I are glad to just listen to what your project is, or what's your hurdle, what's keeping you from making that next step, and let's just work through it so that November 1st you can start running.
I think I told Kent earlier, I'm trying to do some of the YouTube, integration with my writing. And so I think one of my next steps, it's not specifically writing, but it's getting the mashup of the music that's going to accompany my novel into kind of my promo video, if you will. And so there's lots of moving pieces. I have to depend on other people. So getting all the dominoes to fall, like getting my pianist. Yes, I was supposed to record this week. Well, then my pianist was sick. So now I've contacted a different pianist. And then my mom, I've been wanting to get a recording. She's a professional musician too. And I have, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted her to sing "O Holy Night" on recording because we would always perform that. And so, of course, she's like, "Oh, I don't think my voice sounds as good." But I'm like, "No, you still sound great." So she's coming to visit from Kansas the last week in October. So I've got to get the pianist to have the recording, to try to get my mom to do her part of the recording. And in November, I'm trying to get part of the videography part. So it's just a lot of moving pieces, not to mention me trying to practice. And then I want to still crank out a Christmas short story or two. So, you just start being like, I got to stay on task to get, both music portions and the short stories all lined up, and I don't have a lot of writer friends. And so they don't always understand. My husband's very supportive. He's like a YouTuber and stuff. So he's like creative and stuff too. But most of my other friends are musicians, but they don't quite get all the like writer side of it or the YouTube side of it. And yeah, it's just a lot of moving parts. And sometimes I need other people who kind of get this weird job,
Yeah, that's a big undertaking. That is a lot of pieces.
Yeah, so praying that everyone is well, that's involved. And my pastor is doing part of it. He's doing this he was literally a rock star in his pre-pastor life. So he's doing it's like a mashup. So it's like classical and then rock and then goes into the "O Holy Night" and stuff.
Wow.
So he's supposed to record with me too. And he was in a big band out on the West Coast before. So anyway, I'm trying to get all these dominoes to like fall in place.
Wow.
So, and you know how it is with COVID, you never know for sure, like, if it all, is going to be able to roll out by Christmas. So.
Yes, I do. I get that.
Yeah. So I'm excited for your ballet. This will be cool.
Thanks. Well, my sister and I play the piano, so if you're short of pianists, let us know and we can probably crank something out for you. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. What kind of, do you play classical or jazz or contemporary or what's kind of your...
My sister does covers of all kinds of things, classical or more like pop sounding piano versions of Strawberry Fields Forever or...
Oh, nice.
I'm going to throw out a suggestion here that Ashley and your sister should do a collaboration album.
They should.
Nice.
I mean, like you two are both, I mean, it's like, I can just see it in my mind.
Yay.
This could be like a series of albums. I mean, so many cool songs. I mean, my goodness, you could do a Valentine's Day album with love songs. You could do like holiday stuff. I mean, Easter. There's just so much like piano, violin. Like, what could be better than that?
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, if you look up Marilyn Burns, Byrnes, on Pandora or Spotify or anything. Marilyn
Is she on
Burns.
YouTube too? Or?
Yeah, she's on YouTube too. Yeah, Marilyn Burns. And she's got about 1 million streams on Pandora per week right now.
Oh my word, she's awesome.
Her piano music, which is astounding, and because we don't perform anywhere publicly, we don't go on tour. We don't, we just we just record in our homes, but she's recording.
But right now, that's what's kind of helpful, especially with COVID. And then, I mean, for me, like, I'm not really wanting to go on a bunch of
right. So it's
go on a bunch of big tours right now. I've got little ones and stuff.
And maybe I mentioned, but next year, instead of the writing group, I'm planning to switch this to a music group for 6 or 8 or 12 months, and once a month talk about how to record your music and get it posted on all the music platforms. And so if you know any musicians, others who want to do this and want to make use of singing or their instruments or their whatever, I'm going to try to teach a class on how to do that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
because I'm trying to kind of move some more of it online, since that's kind of what
I forgot
where we're at.
I do remember you do violin. Is that like your main
Yeah, that was my undergrad, was in violin.
That's your main thing. Okay. Yeah.
But I sing too, so.
Okay.
But violin would be my big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are your goals. Connie, are you up for committing to a goal or something in November?
That would help me a lot. Deadlines help me a lot.
Yeah.
I found my books, by the way.
Oh, super. You're ready
I
then.
know.
November 1st, you'll be ready to just start organizing, and I'm glad you found them. And I definitely think I'd love to hear some of your poems and what your progress is in the middle of November when we get back for our meeting. If you want to think about this 30-day challenge, and I think if by the end of November you could have a whole book ready to, a good draft ready to go, ready to show to people and say, what should I do? Clean up, fix, and we could get you published by the end of the year on Amazon and just do a self-publishing and upload it, or sometime in the spring.
That would be amazing.
Definitely doable, and that would be great. Yeah, I'd love to see you be able to get those out to the world. I think it's scary stuff, but I think it's, I think they'll be so much more helpful to people if they can read them. They're not helpful to anyone if they're just they're helpful to you, but
you're all true. Good point.
But if they're in a filing cabinet or in a unknown location, I just think by getting them out there, you never know what got this ballet company in South Carolina just found my book on Amazon and emailed me and said, "Hey, we love this story. Could we do a full-length ballet?" And I was shocked. I was like, "How did you find my story?" And they were like, "We were looking for a new Christmas story, and my subtitle is A New Story for Christmas." And so they typed that in Google and found A New Story for Christmas and said, "This is great. Can we do it?" And they've done it 2 years in a row now, and we just filmed it and we're making movies. So once you get things out there, then, God has, I think he can do a lot more with it. It means putting yourself out there, but what do we have to lose? Really, we're dust.
No.
It's we don't have that much time here on earth anyway. So if our stuff can bless people, let it bless people. Neville, I missed your introduction earlier because I was getting home late from a hospital, but is there a 30-day challenge you would like to consider, something you'd like to do?
I'm now provoked into it, listening to this mix, because I like working with goals, and I'm thinking about it, yes.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind on the third Wednesday presenting probably a part of what I'm working on right now, or who knows, there might be something new.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. If you want to present something, share a chapter or two or something, and maybe in November on a third Wednesday, and or something new that's you've finished by then. So
finished by then,
or you're working on by then. Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. Talking about finished by now.
Yeah.
By then, what's her name? Who left? Amy, Ashley.
Mary left.
Mary left.
Mary left, and she mentioned that she was halfway into some book she's working on. And what happened for me when I heard that, I wanted to ask the question, but she was leaving just shortly after that. What happens to you internally? What happens to you emotionally when you're halfway through something? I'm halfway into a book.
Yes.
What sort of anxieties, fears, and whatever happens? What happens at halfway? And that's a question I'm throwing out to anyone to answer, because I'm a neophyte into producing a book. This is the first one, and I'm halfway.
I can definitely answer that question, because my goal with this book on St. Nicholas was really to turn it into a movie and a musical. And so I started writing the music for it. I write music and words, and I got stuck at halfway. This is a few years ago. So I've been this is a 25-year project. I hate to admit it, but we've been thinking about this and I gotten halfway done with it, and I was talking to a movie producer in Hollywood, and he said, he's a friend of mine, but he said, "I really, really like this idea about the St. Nicholas." And I said, would you like half the script? I've got half of it done. And he said, "Well, Eric, I can't really do anything with half a script, but when you're done with it, give it to me and I can show it around to a lot of people." And I just it was hard for me to hear because he was like, I can't do anything with half a script, but it was motivating to me to say. And he said, we in Hollywood we change things and move things around anyway, and and I was like, oh, I want to get all the songs recorded nicely, so it really is a nice demonstration of what the show will be. And he said, we've got musicians, we've got people that can take care of that. You just get the script done, and then I can do something with it. And so at the beginning of COVID, I was afraid actually that if I got it, I got some susceptibilities to some of the things of COVID. And so I thought, if I got COVID and I actually died, I would feel terrible that I didn't finish. So I spent the first 3 months of COVID just writing, and I finished it though. I finished this whole musical.
Okay.
Called His Name Was Nicholas. And it's got the whole script, and it's got all 25 songs in it. And I was finally able to send it out to this producer in Hollywood. And the day I was done, I said, hey, would you still be interested in this? Because it's been a couple of years now. And he wrote back instantly and said, absolutely, please send it to me. And so I shot it off to him, within minutes after that. So I think just having
is that similar to your other one, or is it the musical and the book, or are they related?
Yeah, the book was the basis for the musical. The book was the idea to get to the musical. And
what was the book one called?
St. Nicholas the Believer.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But then the ballet came out of the blue, and it's called One Life, a Christmas story ballet. But it came out of the blue, and so they said, can we turn it? And so it's all dancing though. So it's all dancing. So I said, I'm working on this musical. Would you like some of the songs? So they used a few of the songs that I had done already. But I just kept feeling like I haven't finished the project that I felt tasked to do, and I wanted to do it. But I had to have the incentive of COVID and, a little fear of God put in me to finally just say, I am going to finish this. And part of it is just, I think the anxiety, you asked about the anxiety, is it even, have I just wasted my time doing the first half? Because you just don't know, should I even bother finishing it? What if I finish it and I have not heard back from the Hollywood producer? I've sent it to Hollywood. I've sent it to a New York Broadway guy that was a friend of my wife's. I've sent it to Chicago Theater Festival. I've taken it to my church and said, do you want to produce this as a mega church, as a Christmas story? I've not heard back from one of them about it. Okay. But now that I have it done, it's like Connie's project. Now that I have it done, I put it up on Amazon and I talk about it to people and I say, hey, there's this project, and I don't know if Hollywood's going to like it, or New York or Chicago or my church, but there might be, my homeschool group might say, hey, I'd love to do it. And I'll be happy if a group of homeschoolers comes out to my farm and we just film it here in the grass. I don't care. I want someone to do it. But I do definitely feel that anxiety of being halfway done, and sometimes you just need a deadline, some kind of deadline to help you. Yeah. I don't know, Kent, you've had books, you've had projects where you get into them and then you table them for a while, and then how do you get back out, and what do you deal with that?
I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I've got 2 or 3 full-length books that I've written that I've just been sitting on my hard drive for 3 or 4 years. It just has never has seemed like the right time to do anything with them, which I know makes 0 sense, and it really doesn't make any sense. But
makes total sense to me. Total sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Honey,
good.
She has volumes of poetry around her house.
I know. It's like, no, I get it.
Really, I would say my biggest problem the past few years has been just perfectionism, and in fact, there was a book that I worked extensively on. And Eric, it's the one that was called Born to Create. And this was like a story kind of a thing. And I went into so much detail studying story structure, how to build a story, how to outline a story, that literally, this is no joke, I had 150 pages worth of notes without really writing anything in the story. I think I wrote like 3,000 words on it. And then I got so bogged down with thoughts and ideas and just all of this stuff related to it that I just got completely paralyzed and I just quit. Now, the good thing is that I really learned from that experience, and the experience that I had with that, I have reversed that, and I've been able to write I'm in the middle of writing my second ghostwriting client book since, gosh, when did I start that one? I think I started the first one in June, and I wrote that one, I think 3 months, really faster than that. But then you have all the editing and all that stuff and all the back and forth with the client. Now I'm about halfway through my second book. So I've been way faster with these. But what I have learned is that there's something, when you're writing stuff for somebody else, there's an emotional detachment from it that you don't have with your own stuff. Like whenever you're writing your own stuff, you have thought about it so much and you're so emotionally attached to it that it's really paralyzing if you're not careful. That's why I respect so much what Eric has done over the years, because you just like crank out these books on a regular basis, and somehow you found that mechanism that allows you to overcome that perfectionism. And that's something I think we can all really learn from, for sure. So for me, actually, this sounds kind of ironic, but it's taken me ghostwriting books for clients to kind of overcome my own perfectionism. So I've really learned a lot through writing for other people. I'm not saying everybody should do that, because it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of work. But I've really learned a lot from the process. So
what about you, Neville? What kind of anxiety or feelings does it produce in you to have half done?
Okay. I have been presenting speeches for a number of years. I'm in the mental health area, and I would present speeches to various companies, petroleum companies, large companies, on mental health in industry and such like. And what has happened for me all along is, because of being a perfectionist, I will rework and rework and rework my speech before I present them. And I make the point that no one would ever see anything about my speech unless I have gone through it about 7 times. I will have about 7 editions. I've been working on 2 books for the longest while. One is on conscience, and the longer I take to finish it, the longer I will take to finish it. Because
yes,
more and more stuff is happening for me about the whole business of conscience, and it seems ridiculous what I have so far. I've put that aside, and in the past several weeks, I've started to work gung-ho on something which I mentioned earlier on when you were not here, is Adventures of an Apostle, and I'm working through Acts on that. I am fairly satisfied with the first half I've done, only fairly satisfied. But I think it will be a bit controversial, because I'm doing it as a creative nonfiction, and a verse, as I was saying earlier on, a verse in the scriptures for me is about 3 pages, because there's a lot of dialogue in it and a lot of assumptions of real life, which is not written in scripture. And I'm making it creative. I'm making it a little humorous in places. Now, the perfectionist in me says, what's going to happen when someone sees the draft, even if it's number 7?
Yes.
And that's where I'm. That's the reason why I heard earlier on, I'm halfway through the book, and it says to me, yes, so what does it do for you internally when you're halfway through?
Yes.
Because when I'm presenting, for instance, if I'm presenting mental health to engineers, I have to be careful how I'm speaking. It's much different than presenting mental health to a clinical assembly. And in a clinical assembly, quite often, they don't even want jokes or funny things. They want empiricists. You know, and that's where it is at. Who would read it and who will just throw it aside the first time they see it?
Is that your biggest hurdle, do you think, to finishing it? Or do you have other hurdles that are keeping you from finishing
That's the only one, because if I'm writing it for myself, I'm fine. I could write it for myself, and to write it for myself, I'd be pretty happy enjoying it. but
would it help to do a first? Would it help to do a first draft all the way through and just write it for yourself, and then go back and edit? Or can you work that way? Do you have to edit as you go 7 times before you move on? I just wonder how your style is. Yeah, what's your style, buddy?
7 is the Lord's perfect number, so maybe that's the reason, yes. Right?
It's both, really. It depends on what it is. In this particular case, what has happened to me is that I got so intrigued, as I mentioned earlier on, with Saul, that when I get to Paul, I'm not ready to work on Paul, because there's a lot about Saul that is not written. And that took me into more and more research and more understanding of the Saul's life. What was Saul like as a child? What was Saul like as a teenager? And so that stuck me. I could go forward, but if I go forward, I'll get too excited. The things that excite me a lot are the first, second, third missionary journey. The thing, as a matter of fact, that excites me most is the end of it. How will I end Paul's life in Rome? There's so much controversy about it. And I want to get there, but I can't get there until I understand Saul.
Interesting.
I want, rather than to echo what others have said, because there are many books written about Paul, instead of echoing what others have said, I just want my voice to be heard. And that's difficult at times.
Yeah.
If I want to write it and put it on a shelf, that's fine. But I've only thought of publishing very recently. I haven't thought of publishing before. I just thought of writing. And as I'm thinking of publishing, now I'm thinking, what will the audience be saying? Where did he get that stuff from?
Also, Neville, as you're talking, have you seen this series, a TV series called The Chosen?
I haven't seen that now.
The Chosen. So it's about the apostles, but it's sort of new. But you can look on an app and just say how to watch The Chosen, and there's an app you can download. But it reminds me of your story in the sense that it sort of gives more backstory to each of the apostles. And I think there's maybe only 8 episodes are out right now, but they put a disclaimer at the beginning, a simple disclaimer that says, these are actual people that really lived, but we've, reconfigured their stories a little bit to make it so you can watch it, as a series. But the heart behind them and the heart behind the people is all real. And I started watching with my son, and we're just a few months ago, and I was so taken by it because it gave a backstory about each of the apostles, and it wasn't scripture, but when they got to the scripture part, like when Peter says, bows down in front of Jesus and said, "Oh, away from me, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinful man." You just read that in the scripture, but you don't know what his sins were. You don't know. So this show shows a few of his sins, and they project that maybe he was gambling a little bit, and then he has this workaholism where he's working on the Sabbath and he shouldn't be, and so they've given some ideas behind it, and I'm sort of watching going, I don't know if that's what I think or if that's what I think, but then they get to the clincher where he falls down and he says, "Oh Lord, I'm a sinful man," and you're going, yeah, he's a sinful man, because I just watched his, and it makes it more powerful because then Jesus forgives him and says, get up, you're going to lead my church. And so I think there's a lot of life and health to sharing a backstory that obviously this because you've been writing it, but I think I love it, and my son loves it, and lots of people love it. I mean, millions of people are starting to watch it now because it's just so fascinating, and it's not quite so churchy, and it's got a scriptural basis, and it has a message, but I think what you're writing is very fascinating. And I think I would add to what Connie says and just say your voice is really the important part. Your voice, your hearing about what you bring to this.
Yeah.
really is important. And the same with, writing on, your talks or whatever. And there's a time to tailor it to your audience, but there's also a time to write just true to you, and
Sure.
and then send it to people like Kent and me. No, if you have some close friends that you can say, hey, do you think this is like way off the wall, or do you think? But I wrote this book eventually. I wrote this 50 Shades of Grace, my personal testimony. I decided after Kent's encouragement, I said, I'm just going to finish writing the whole thing anyway, because it's so helpful to me and healing, and my wife had passed away, and I was able to just go through our whole love story, and I just really got a lot of joy just out of writing it. And it's my favorite book I've written 30 books now, but it's my favorite, and not everybody loves it because it's a little sensual, but a lot of people really love it because it's straight from the heart and straight to their heart. So
because when I said that Paul was OCD and going through Cyprus, he was so much interested in planning his next strategies and all that. And Barnabas was happy to show him Cyprus because Barnabas knew Cyprus and was very playful. And then it started to create some problems with them, to the extent that by the time they hit Pamphylia, Barnabas and his nephew decided they couldn't stand Saul anymore. That's why John Mark said, I'm going back to Jerusalem. I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
But
that's a good backstory. That makes sense. It makes sense.
You've got to take a little liberty every now and then to make the thing humorous and make it human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. I had to do the same with St. Nicholas. I mean, we know some facts about him, but he was a real man, and he lost his parents when he was young. And so I tried to explore what was that like, and maybe that had an impact on why he is beloved by children so much now, because he reached out to people who were, I don't know, I don't have that written anywhere, but once you get inside the character's head like you've done, you can really sort of start to see them as human beings again and not just statues.
Mm-hmm. Right. It makes the Bible more real. It makes it feel like it's real life instead of just a story in a book. When you get to know who the person is. I mean, that's what I think when I'm reading something and I can really see the person's their heart. I mean, like when I'm reading the Bible, sometimes you see their heart, God allows you to see that. It's like these are real people. They're not just stories that somebody made up, Mm-hmm. And when people can see that, to me, it makes Jesus more real. They could see it, understand it better.
I think one way I overcame my other hurdle of this, trying to finish the second half of this, I was really stuck in the middle because I wanted the second half. I wanted the ending of the first act when people leave the auditorium to be so powerful, and then that they'd want to come back. And then I wanted the beginning of the second half to set up what was going to happen in the climax of the whole show. So it's like but I didn't quite know what those elements were, and I wasn't sure quite where to break the middle. And that's where I got stuck, because I was just this took me a couple years of just going, how do I start the second act? And how do I, where am I going with it? Yeah. But finally, my default answer was I had already written this other book about the whole story, and I had it all laid out once, years ago. I laid out the entire story, and I thought, I'm just going to follow the pattern and what I felt like it should be from the beginning, and I'll let the chips fall where they may in terms of the drama and the break. And it helped me over the hurdle, because I just wrote the next scene. I just said, okay, I've got to write the next scene, because I just need to move on. And I wrote the next scene, and then I wrote the next scene, and then 3 months later I was done with the whole book, and I found the right breaking point. And the song right before the break, it just happened to be where I was thinking about his name was Nicholas, and they had a dream about Nicholas, and I just kept doing this thing in the song where, I had this dream about this man, and his name was Nicholas. His name was Nicholas, and the whole song sort of playful and fun. His name was Nicholas, and I hadn't had a title for my musical yet. I've just always called it St. Nicholas the Musical, because I don't know what to call it. But in that moment, finding out that released the drama point to me was, this is the title of the whole show, is His Name Was Nicholas. He's a real man. You call him Santa Claus, you call him Saint whatever, but this is a man that his name was Nicholas, and he lived a life just like you do. But if you live it right, one life is all you need. And so it gave me the title and the climax of my show and everything. But I just had to press through and say, all right, let's go with my gut of what I thought it should be, and I'll let those other things work themselves out. Sometimes too, it helps just to write the part that's exciting to you. I'm reading this book of quotes, and one of the quotes early on, he says, "Start in the middle." He says, "Don't start your story at the beginning. People don't want to hear the beginning. They want to hear what's in the middle. What's the interesting point, the climax point, the tension point." And it's sometimes you just want to go ahead and jump ahead to that scene and just say, okay, let's just skip ahead. Although I know you wanted more information so you can make that scene really work, but maybe it's time just to write the scene that you really want to write. Just jump to it and let the rest fill in. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All just ideas. Who knows what's going to work? But
well, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And a group like this can really help too, just to say, keep going. That's a great idea. We'd love to see it. We'd love to read it. And maybe you can read a chapter or two for us next month. So.
Okay.
Oh, I think this tonight has helped a lot because, just like reading some of my poems, like I feel like God speaks to me through them, but I don't know what other people think about them because they're not available to read. But then when I read them, and Mary said, and they're like, she's already an author. Eric's already an author. I mean, these people that are already authors, and then they say, oh, that's pretty good. I like the way that sounds, or you know what I mean? Something like that. It makes you feel like, well, maybe they are better than just staying in the notebook,
For sure. Bring them out.
Yeah.
Bring them out.
It's encouraging to, go back and read them then and just think, okay, we'll go for this, Eric. Give me the deadline and I'll.
I think it's great. The deadline number 1 is by November 1st, have your plan in order, and then all of November, get something done by the end of November. Or if it takes you 40 days or the rest of the year, by the end of the year, you'll have something, at least a draft of something. Kent, I know you've got projects too. I don't know if you ever got to share, but do you have a November goal or you just have a daily goal? You've got your new podcast called The Daily Writer. So you don't do 30-day goals. You just do every day, right.
Well, I would say things are very much in flux for me right now in terms of just in the past probably 3 months, like my business has really picked up a lot. I think a lot of that is honestly things have started to kind of click for me the last few months because I feel like I finally got clear on what it is that I'm supposed to be doing and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish with my writing and with my business. Not that I have it all figured out by a long shot, but, for me, it involves several pieces. I've got my podcast, which is all about equipping and serving writers. And then I have my ghostwriting stuff, which is very client-based. And then I also just love to help writers on the side. Like Ashley and I talked for a while today, and that was a blast. I love
awesome.
talking. Yeah, I just love talking with writers. I'm also now working with, with Morgan James. They're a New York publisher. I'm a literary scout for them. So basically, I talk to authors to see if they're a good fit for their publishing model and the kind of books that they produce. So I have several different pieces that I'm working on in addition to my own books. So I'm just having a blast doing it. But as far as like my immediate goals, in November, I'm writing, I'm going to be drafting my next book. And that is very similar to the book that I talked about a while back, which was called Born to Create. That's a book I never finished. And it just feels like, I don't know if you all have had this experience where you get excited about a book idea for a long time. And then after a while, you just kind of lose enthusiasm for it. It almost feels like, I think ideas are for a certain time. And there are certain periods where a certain idea really fits what you're trying to do right then, or it fits what you're excited about in life, or it fits a certain time, a time period or something. And I feel like that idea has passed for me. I'm no longer really excited about it. But what I have done is I'm taking elements of that story and I've got a different story that I want to write. So this will be kind of like it's not a business book, but it's the same style as a business parable. So if you all are familiar with books like the 1 Minute Manager or the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the Go Giver, it's kind of these like 150-page fiction, they're fiction books, but they're designed to teach specific lessons about a topic. So that's what this book is about.
I'm glad you're picking it up again. That's great. And you can sort of give it a rebirth.
Yeah. So here's what this, I'm just going to throw this out there. So this will give me some accountability for what this book is about. This is going to sound very weird. It probably isn't going to make a lot of sense, but I was reading another book a while back. This has been probably a couple months ago. And you know how when you're reading something, sometimes that triggers something in your own mind or subconscious or creativity, and something just flashes in a moment. I don't know if any of you have had that experience where a fully formed idea just instantly enters your mind.
Mhm.
It's like it's not from you, and you know, whether we attribute that to God or something else. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the pizza that I had for lunch. Who knows what it is? But this image flashed in my mind of this kid in high school, and he was sitting in a darkened movie theater watching an old movie, and that was all that the image was. And it was very strange, to be honest with you. And immediately I began to be very curious about this, and I wondered, why is this kid skipping school, and why is he in a theater watching movies? What's wrong with his life that he feels the need to skip school, and why is he so drawn to old movies? And so I just began to kind of explore that image, and interestingly enough, that really coincided with the desire that I've had over the last few months to write a book for my college students. A lot of college students last year, they had a very tough year because a lot of them didn't get to graduate. And that's true of some of our college students, because in my day job, I'm a college teacher.
I love college students. I feel like that's such an important demographic. I love that age.
And I just felt myself really compelled to, I wanted to write something for them that basically gave them permission to follow their dreams and to be themselves and to follow what they feel called to do in life, and not just go into some career or some line of work because other people expect them to. And I just felt really compelled to write that story. And so that desire to write a book for my students, just out of love for them, that's really all that it is. But also this other idea, they just kind of gelled into one thing. So I've got a story outline and a thing that I'm going to be working on. It'll be about 30,000 words probably. So at about 1,000 words a day, I'll be drafting that in November. I've got to do some work outlining the book. And Eric has been so enormously helpful with outlining books, and he has a specific thing that he follows in outlining books with, like a story-based book. So I'm basically going to steal that and use it for my own process.
Great.
So that's what I'm working on
That's
next
great.
month. That was kind of a long way to explain a very simple question.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're getting back to that topic. I think that'll be helpful for people.
Very cool.
Well, this has been super tonight. We're just down to the last few minutes here. Anybody have anything else they feel compelled to say or to do? And then we'll say a prayer for your 30-day challenge if you want to take up that gauntlet, and we'll reconvene in November and hear.
When is the November meeting?
It's the third Wednesday, so that would be the 18th, the week before Thanksgiving.
Week before. Okay, good. All right.
Yep, the 18th. 10 days after that is my ballet. So my ballet online. So
send us that.
I'll be done by November, and I can show you a scene or two.
Yes.
You can go to ericelder.com and you'll be able to watch it. Thanksgiving weekend. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thank you
As
all
always
for joining us. Thanks, Kent, for leading us through.
My pleasure.
I'm happy if someone would like to pray and close us out.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Lord, we are grateful to be a part of this group tonight. And I'm so thankful for these men and women who have shared their heart for writing and shared their heart for serving people through writing. I pray for everybody in this group and those who have been a part of it the last few months who weren't able to join us tonight, as well as those who are going to watch this in the future. I pray you would guide our creative spirits, that you would guide our spirit of service, that you would guide our just guide our hands and our minds as we write for you, and to honor what you've put in our hearts to share. Lord, thank you for the privilege of being a part of this group, and I pray you would help keep us safe and healthy in all that we do, so we can honor you for the rest of our days with our words and with everything that we do. It's in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much, everyone.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Can you wave bye-bye? Say thank you.
Bye. Bye.